Hello and welcome to this tutorial on system dynamics modeling and STELLA software from IC Systems. This is the fourth video in this multi-part tutorial. If you haven't seen the other videos, I recommend checking those out first before watching this one. Videos 1 and 2 went over some basic terminology about systems and system dynamics, and some patterns like feedback loops. And video 3 went over the basic components of system dynamic models, so stocks, flows, and converters. If you're all caught up, in this video, we're going to talk about causal loop diagrams. So causal loop diagrams are a graphical representation of a system used to illustrate causal relationships among all of the important variables in a system. It's a qualitative tool for understanding the structure of your system, and it should include all important variables, causal links, and feedbacks. Causal loop diagrams can often serve as the basis for constructing more complex quantitative models, and they help to really put together an architecture for your system dynamics model. Let's look at this very quick example just to show you what a causal loop diagram looks like. So this is a model of population growth, and we can see our main stock here in the middle is population, and we have two flows here, births and deaths. And we can see through these arrows there are 4 causal relationships. As population increases, it's going to increase births. And as birth rate increases, it's going to increase population. However, as population increases, it's going to increase the number of deaths because there are more individuals to die. But as death rate increases, we're going to see a negative effect on population. The more deaths we have, the more population is going to decline. And so inside these two loops, we can see one is going to be a reinforcing feedback. So as the population grows, it increases birth rate, which is going to increase the population. That's what that R stands for. And then on the other side here, as population increases, it's going to increase death rate. But as that death rate increases, it's going to decrease the population. So that's going to be a balancing feedback leading to muted effects. Let's look at another quick example. So let's imagine we're in a little cabin on a snowy day, and we're interested in maintaining the inside temperature of this cabin. So there are 2 different processes that are going to affect the inside temperature. One is going to be heating, so that will be a flow into inside temperature, and the other is going to be heat escaping, so that will be a flow out of room temperature. The 2 things that are going to control that are the difference between the thermostat setting and the actual inside temperature, and the difference between the inside and outside temperatures. So let's look at these feedback loops. As the inside temperature increases, it's going to have a negative effect on the difference between the thermostat and the actual inside temperature. That's what this little negative sign here means. And what that means is, as temperature increases inside, then there's going to be less of a disparity between the actual temperature and the desired temperature. And as the difference between the thermostat temperature and the actual temperature increases, that's going to kick in more heating to try to get that inside temperature all the way up to what the thermostat is set at. While all of this is happening, we're also interested in the difference between outside temperature and inside temperature. The greater the difference between these 2 temperatures, the more heat is going to escape. And the greater the inside temperature, the more of a difference there's going to be. But then as more heat escapes, it's going to have a balancing effect or a negative effect on this inside temperature. And so we can see that these are both balancing feedback loops. As inside temperature increases, we're going to see less heating, and as inside temperature increases, we're going to see more heat escaping. So keeping that temperature from getting too hot. Causal loop diagrams can be great for understanding system interventions, as well as just understanding basic system structure. To demonstrate this, let's imagine the same causal loop diagram. So we have our heating and our heat escaping. And now we're going to add the converter of insulation. And so we can imagine that without insulation, this loop on the left here is going to stay pretty much the same. This loop on the right, heat is going to escape relatively quickly without insulation, and it's going to escape even more quickly as inside temperature rises. However, if we add insulation, we would expect the heat escaping rate to go down, meaning that the inside temperature decreases slower. And because of this, we might expect to see a difference in the behavior of the system over time. With insulation, we would expect a lower amplitude or less differences between the maximum and minimum temperatures that the room is going to bounce between. Whereas without insulation here on the right, we're likely to see higher amplitude or more difference in between that hot point and cold point that the room is bouncing between, just because we're losing heat a lot faster and needing to make up for that with external heating sources. This is one last causal loop diagram. It's not important for you to absorb everything about this visual, but I wanted to show everyone that causal loop diagrams can get pretty complicated pretty quickly and involve lots of positive effects, negative effects, balancing feedbacks and reinforcing feedbacks, and lots of different variables. This particular causal loop diagram is about population growth as a function of resource availability and life expectancy. And so you can see how it can be helpful for gaining an understanding, but constructing the actual system dynamics model and playing it out over time can really show you what kind of behavior you're going to see in your system. This video has been a quick overview of causal loop diagrams. Make sure to join me in my next video to talk about what makes system dynamics modeling different and important. Thanks for joining.